Sarah and I run totally.co.uk. Today I've got a video lesson for you guys for question 2D, that's writer's effect. Heavily requested and heavily stressed out about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you guys through some of the common mistakes that I see for question 2D. We're going to do a quick practice and then I'm going to show you a real student exemplar that got 15 out of 15. So let's get started. Don't forget that if you like this video lesson, please do like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. But you can also find more like this over on my website, totally.co.uk. I've got a completely free First Language English course on. I do also do live group classes and master classes. That's 2-month intensive bursts right before First Language exams. So you can see all of my upcoming events right here on the events calendar. And if you want to do my premium writing course for Paper 2 First Language English, you can find that right here. There's 30 hours of content on there that isn't on YouTube. All right, beginning first of all then with my top tips for writer's effect. After that, we'll do a practice, and then after that, we'll see the real student exemplar. But first, top tips. So the first one is pick a juicy quote. And what I mean by that is your quote, you should be able to take it and juice it and squeeze it and get a lot of orange juice from it, right? So don't pick quotes that don't have a lot to say about them. Pick quotes that have got really big, obvious images in them. So your quote must be on the mark scheme, or you won't get any credit for the analysis of that image, right? Because it means you've not selected an image. So you need to be really careful with your quotations. You will still be credited for a partial quote if you don't get the full quote. So for example, if you miss some of the words, you will still get credited, you will still be marked, but it will be marked down as a partial quote. Do make sure that your quote is juicy. So by that, what I mean is it creates a really obvious image in your head. It's got really obvious visual imagery or sensory imagery, such as scent, hearing, touch, and taste. You can really picture it in your mind or really imagine it. I once had a student who picked a really random quote. And I said, why did you do that? There's no imagery in here at all. And he said, oh, well, I didn't want to be too obvious. I thought I would get more marks for being original. No. Pick the ones that you're sure will be on the mark scheme. The quote length. So then students get a bit freaked out because they realise, oh gosh, my quotes have to be on the mark scheme. How long am I looking for? Cambridge are annoying. Cambridge are inconsistent. There is no set number of words per quotation. Plenty of times I've seen quotes that are just 1 word long, and other times I've seen quotes that are 10 words long. Typically you're aiming for about 3 to 6 words, but I have seen 1-word quotations, so don't freak yourself out. Basically you're thinking, do all of these words create that image? Are there any words in here which are just extra and aren't creating that image? Or even sometimes people write really long quotes and the effect is they've got 2 separate images in them. So then that leads to them not really fully analysing either. So think, from my quote, are they creating the same image? Or perhaps is it creating 2 separate images and have I accidentally quoted 2 different ideas from the mark scheme? As I've said, it can be a single word if it's a really powerful word that creates an obvious image in your head, but do have a look around it and see if any of those other words contribute to creating that imagery in your mind. So the words that are creating the strongest imagery in your head, those are the ones that you want to quote, and leave out the ones which are just filler. Right? These are just filler. It might sound obvious, but don't pick quotations that you don't understand, unless it's that you literally can't find 3 quotes that you understand. You don't get any more marks for picking a harder quote, so where possible, only pick quotes that you're really sure of the explicit and implicit meaning of. So if you pick a harder quote, you're only making your own job harder because you won't understand what it means. So how are you going to say the meaning? How are you going to analyse the effect? You can't. If you're not sure of 3 quotations, then you'll have to guess. Sorry, that is the reality of it. So I've said over and over again in my videos of this that you don't need to identify techniques. Don't need to do it. Cambridge are looking to see if you understand the overall meaning of the paragraph, the explicit meaning of your quotations, and the implicit effect. You get no marks for saying that's a simile, that's a metaphor, that's personification. You do get marks if you can say the effect of that technique. But again, you could still say the effect of that technique without saying it's personification and get the exact same mark. What I have found is for students who are also studying IGCSE literature, and often for A-star students, top students, when they start to think of this question like a Cambridge extract-based response, they go way off topic, they lose the structure, they don't say the basic meaning of the words, maybe they even give more than 3 quotations. And so I've often taught my students who do study literature, this isn't a literature question, This is writer's effect question, QMCE question. Think of it differently, think of it separately. It's not the same. So yes, if you are also doing literature, just be aware it's not extract-based response. Stay focused. Quote, meaning, connotation, effect. Move on. Get your marks. Run away. So, for example, if you identify personification, great, good for you, but you only get marks if you say that it's used to make something seem human-like, therefore larger than life, powerful, imposing, and important. These are the effects. That's why you're getting your mark. Word choice of personification, good for you. Clever. But it's not literature and it's not necessary. For example, here is one of my previous lovely tutees who did get an A star. In one of her practices, though, she was falling into the trap of identifying lots of techniques, and it didn't get her any more marks. Look at this. Cast a dancing dappled shade. This phrase uses alliteration in the D sound to provide a very calm and idyllic effect. How does alliteration create a calm and idyllic effect? Doesn't quite make sense, and especially alliteration of the D sound, because d is quite a harsh sound. Might even be associated with like gunshots. So she's not said the effect. She thinks that she's done enough by saying that it's alliteration. Her effect doesn't make sense. No extra marks for saying that it's alliteration there, because she's not done anything with it. The phrase literally means that the light shone in uneven patches, meaning liminally moving all over the plant. The phrase gives a very calm effect. How? Why? And uses personification to further demonstrate the peacefulness. The term dancing is used to describe the sunlight's gentle radiance and soothing shine after many months of bad weather. Okay, but how does personification create the effect of peacefulness? Because it doesn't always. Sometimes it can be quite creepy if things that aren't alive suddenly seem like they are alive and moving and out to get us. So here she's identified alliteration, personification. The effect doesn't quite make sense, so I'm afraid she's got no extra marks for saying those. So this is just a warning to you guys that think, if I write the technique, I've done enough. It makes you have this false sense of security where you think that you've said something really clever just because you've identified a technique, and then you feel like, good job me, and you run away, but you don't really give the effect, or if you do give the effect, it doesn't make sense, or it's not been fully explained, then you're not getting the marks. So that's why I personally don't recommend to my students that they analyse techniques within Q2d. Now, do also avoid repeating any words from your quotations when you are explaining the meaning or the effect. You don't get any marks for that. Unbelievably, if you say shining means that it's shining, which has the effect that it's shining, you're not showing that you understand the explicit or implicit meaning, which is ultimately what the examiner is looking out for. They're trying to figure out how much do you understand. So in general, use synonyms to avoid repeating words throughout question 2D. Once you say a word once, once you say an effect once, you don't get any extra marks for repeating that same word or repeating that same effect. So we always want to avoid that repetition. Here's an example of a student that does this. So he is repeating where he shouldn't be. The word ambles has connotations of being excited, suggesting that Cecilia was excited. Excited suggests that she's excited. Repetition, no extra marks for the second one. Also, ambles doesn't have connotations of being excited. It's a very relaxed way of walking. So she's very excited to meet Lawrence and moves quickly to him. The imagery in the trunk high and delighted greeting makes the reader think that Cecilia raising her trunk to greet Lawrence. Okay, so greeting makes us think that he is greeting. Again, no marks therefore for meaning. This has connotations of waving, suggesting that Cecilia learned waving from humans and used it to greet Lawrence, greeting up again. The phrase soft throat rumbles means that Cecilia makes soft sounds and lightly touches Lawrence with her trunk. So notice here all this repetition. Waving shows that she's waving. Soft means that it's soft. We're getting no marks. We don't want to repeat those words. We need to be using our synonyms. So we also need to fully explain how and why an effect is created. So often students say, oh, this creates a calm effect. How? Why do that, right? So we need to go deeper. How exactly does that word choice make us feel calm? So for example, the image precious creature is used to describe the elephant. Okay, cool, we've got our quotation. This means beloved animal. Cool, we've shown explicit understanding. The word precious has connotations of innocence, special and vulnerable. Okay, we're saying our connotations So why does precious mean that it's beloved? Why does it mean that the elephant is seen as innocent, which might have the effect of showing that the elephant is childlike and rare and therefore should be protected? Okay, so we need to develop out, right? So if precious makes us think of being innocent, special, vulnerable, why do that? Because it makes us think of children. And why do that? Because children should be protected. So see here we are developing out, thinking how and why. Why has the writer done this? What might it make the reader feel? And as I've just said, do consider how a word makes you feel. You are the reader. Or if you are a bit of an unusual student, how it might make the average person feel. So consider the way that the writer is probably trying to make the reader feel and why. Think about the tone of that paragraph as a whole, right? So if there's loads of words in there that suggest that something is precious and valuable and golden and glittering and vulnerable and easily broken, probably they're trying to make you think this is something really special that is at risk. I want to protect it. I want to keep it safe. So you need to think, how do all of those words come together to make that feeling for the reader, and then zoom in on specific examples. I've got quite a useful tone vocabulary sheet. Let me just pop that up on the screen. Students sometimes ask me for vocabulary lists. Don't like doing it, simply because you guys go away, learn them all, learn them slightly wrong, and then are like, I'm going to shove these in my writing no matter what and use them incorrectly and your writing sounds weird. But I think that this tone vocabulary sheet is quite useful for identifying some of the overall effects or effects of vocabulary. So we've got positive connotations and negative connotations over here, and then neutral words over here. Feel free to screenshot, guys. All right, so those are my top tips. Now we are going to have a look at a question and a full mark student response. So first of all, the question. The question says, reread paragraphs 1 and 4. The space station and what astronaut A saw in paragraph 1, beginning when the satellite control called me. The spacesuit in paragraph 4, beginning hastily I clambered into my spacesuit. Explain how the writer uses language to convey meaning and to create effect in these paragraphs. Choose 3 examples of words or phrases from each paragraph to support your answer. Your choices should include the use of imagery. So we're looking for imagery, we're looking for powerful words, we're not looking for techniques, right? We're looking for things that create this imagery and creates an effect in our 2 paragraphs. So let's read those paragraphs. This screenshot I've taken from the student's notebook, so you guys can already take note of the quotations that he picked. This is what I would do too. I would read it, I would highlight my quotations, maybe I would highlight even more than 3 so then I've got choices and can pick the best ones. Maybe if I start writing I might realise I'm repeating myself and maybe I need to pick a quotation that's got slightly different connotations so I'm not being overly repetitive. Let's read. So this is paragraph 1 and this is paragraph 4. It's all about astronauts in space. I don't think that we need to read the whole text for you guys to understand the text. It's just describing space. When satellite control called me, I was in the observation bubble, the glass-domed office that juts out from the axis of the space station like the hubcap of a wheel. Only a few yards away, I could see the construction teams performing their slow-motion ballet as they put the station together like a giant jigsaw puzzle. And beyond them, 400 kilometres below, was the blue-green glory of the full Earth, floating against the ravelled star clouds. And then paragraph 4, hastily, I clambered into my spacesuit. Our suits are really baby spaceships, just big enough to hold one person. They are cheerfully coloured, stubby cylinders, about 2 metres long, and fitted with a softly chattering, low-powered propulsion jet. Their accordion sleeves at the upper end fit with hospitable snugness around an astronaut's arms, and the gentle contours of the helmet's visor finish the feeling that you are being looked after by a responsible friend. So, first steps, this is exactly what I would be doing. What are the images that stand out to me, that create a single juicy image in my mind? And I would try to make them kind of as small as possible so that I'm not including any extra filler words. And I would try to make sure that I've definitely not got 2 separate images within one quotation. So for example, students that quoted slow motion ballet and then carried on like a giant jigsaw puzzle, they've got 2 images. One is slow motion ballet, giving me this imagery of ballet, dancing, and jigsaw puzzle of a really complex activity where you need to think about lots of small details and it creates a big, complex, beautiful image. So these are 2 very separate images, dancing and puzzles. So clearly they're 2 separate quotations. The students also highlighted blue-green glory of the full Earth, You might want to put in of the full Earth, but really that the imagery is coming with blue, green, glory. Baby spaceships, I mean, what is the benefit of our suits are really? That's not where the imagery is coming from, so he's right to highlight just that right there. Being looked after by a responsible friend, I do think the main image is of the responsible friend. You could potentially quote looked after. So it's just this task of, all right, what's the imagery? What needs to be included? What doesn't need to be included? Have I definitely only got one image in there, or am I accidentally quoting two images at the same time? And then that's going to lose me some marks because my quote will be partial and I won't be able to fully explain both of them. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the student exemplar in a second. Now, he is one of my former masterclass students. Shout out to Philip Liang, and he followed my exact structure and it paid off for him. Do feel free to go ahead and watch my other videos where I explain this in more depth, but basically I recommend the OQMCE structure. State the overall effect of the paragraph as a whole. Then give a quotation, a strong, juicy image. Then state the meaning of that quotation by giving synonyms, literally, explicitly, what does it mean? Pick out one powerful word from your quotation and analyse its connotations. Then say the effect. What is it trying to make our reader feel? What is the writer trying to suggest more broadly and why? And then you will repeat this 3 times. Students sometimes like to put the overall effect sentence last. That's fine with me. As long as you've got it, it doesn't matter whether you put it at the start or at the end. Some students do find that a little bit easier because they've already analysed their 3 quotes, maybe had a little bit more time to think about the overall effect of that paragraph as a whole. So if that's you and you prefer to do that at the end of your paragraph, no problem. Just make sure you definitely remember to do it. So Philip used this structure. Without further ado, shall we have a look at the full mark exemplar? Okay, so you guys can see that I am marking this examiner style. When I identify the meaning, I will put an M, and when I identify the effect, I'll put an E. I don't think Philip's got it, but basically at any point, if you don't give a full quotation or you don't give the full effect or you've only kind of explained the meaning, the examiner will put like a little upward triangle here to mean partial. If you do it really well, they'll put a plus. I haven't done it on this one just because instead I just said next to it, insightful, well explained, but maybe it would have been more efficient for me to just put the plus. Anyway, so I fully marked this examiner style and highlighted exactly where I am finding that quote meaning or effect. The writer uses language in paragraph 1 to create a sense of awe of being out in outer space. So, sense of awe, overall effect, nice. Firstly, the image of a slow motion ballet means that the builders were floating around slowly as they built the station. So quote, slow motion ballet, what does it literally mean? They were floating around slowly. I did want to see the idea of dance. That will come later on. That's why I've credited him. The word ballet connotes elegance and synchronization, which suggests that the builders are working in such close tandem, it almost looked choreographed. So because he's got this idea of choreographed, synchronization, ballet, I know that he knows it's about dance, so definitely got the meaning. And then the effect, I think, is really nice. Close tandem, elegance, synchronized, choreographed. Secondly, the phrase blue, green, glory is used to describe the view of Earth seen from space. Meaning, it suggests a romanticized version of the world, as the phrase blue-green implies that the world is unspoiled and unpolluted. Great effect there, right? So not just that it's beautiful, but why do this? It's romanticized, it's unspoiled, it's unpolluted. They could maybe develop it by saying, therefore should be protected, or the vulnerability of the Earth. Finally, the image of ravelled star clouds depicts large clusters of stars appearing entangled. Meaning, the word cloud connotes feelings of weightlessness, appearing solid when it actually isn't, and being soft, which suggests that the stars appear delicate and dreamlike. Great effect right there. Weightlessness, soft, delicate, dreamlike. In the 4th paragraph, the main effect conveyed was that the spacesuit is a friendly and reliable companion to have. Overall effect. Firstly, the image of baby spaceships means that the spacesuit was like a miniature spacecraft. Meaning, the word baby connotes innocence and harmlessness, which suggests that the spacesuit is protective and non-threatening. Effect. Innocent, harmless, protective, threatening. Secondly, the phrase cheerfully coloured means that the spacesuits are painted in vibrant colours, which reinforces the idea that they are childlike and playful, suggesting a sense of companionship and familiarity. Meaning and effect. Lastly, the phrase hospitable snugness means that the spacesuit was very comfortable. The word snugness connotes a perfect fit, safety and security, which suggests that the spacesuit is like a second skin and something you can trust to keep you safe in space. So quote, meaning and effect there, and I thought that the effect was particularly well explained. Okay, so then Philip's teacher feedback was this, and this is what I did. I counted up the number of overall effects and thought, are they completely explained or only partially explained? Same for quotations, same for meaning, same for effects. So he got 2 overall effects which were fully explained. He got 6 quotations that were directly from the mark scheme, not partial. He got 6 meanings, so he fully understood what his quotations explicitly meant. And he said 6 effects, and those effects were insightful. Sometimes you can get 6 effects, but they're a little bit clear, unimaginative, like, yeah, obviously that's what that means. But I feel like lots of the students' points were really well explained. My annotations have shifted slightly. So I said, excellent and deserving of top marks. Can I share a copy with the class? And of course, Philip has since given me permission to share with you guys. So because of that, Philip has got 6 quotes, 5 or more meanings, 5 or more effects, which are imaginative. In fact, he's done a really, really good job. Not much that I would expect a GCSE student to do better. Therefore, 15 out of 15 full marks. Let's go, Philip. Well done. I hope that maybe shows some of you it doesn't really matter if your structure is repetitive. If you don't have the techniques, actually the only thing that the examiner is looking out for is, do you understand the text explicitly and implicitly? Can you identify those images? Can you explain why the writer has used those images or word choices? You are not being marked for writing style. So I know some of your teachers tell you guys you have to say this reveals and this suggests and through this and use complex vocabulary. That's fine and that's great, and it's good practice to make your English better, especially if you're also sitting literature, but you don't actually get any marks for it. So if you're worried about using a repetitive structure, don't be for this question. It is absolutely fine to just go overall effect, quote, meaning, connotation, effect, repeat, because you're not being marked for your writing style. In fact, if I flip back over onto the mark scheme, you can see here, nothing on there about your writing style. Wide-ranging discussion of judiciously selected language, high-quality comments that add meaning and association to words in both part of the text and demonstrate writers' reasons for using them. Tackles imagery with some precision and imagination, clear evidence candidate understands how the language works. Nothing in there about techniques, terminology, nothing in there about writing style at all, right? So it is literally quote, connotation, meaning, effect. What's the overall effect of that paragraph? Why is the writer doing this? All right, guys, so that's everything from me for today. If you do have any questions, then feel free to leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you found the content useful, and that you can study live with me. The description will have my events calendar linked in it, and also you've got my premium writing course there if you would like to access some of those video lessons that aren't on YouTube. Thank you so much for your attention and wishing you guys the best of luck with your studies. See you next time. Bye-bye.